Welcome back to another MECH 1000 video. We have been working on drawing 10.4. It's an assembly drawing with multiple parts. We've got all the parts drawn. We've got the assembly drawing done. So all that's left is a little bit of additional annotation and setting up our Paperspace. So let's go to the Paperspace layout. So earlier I had created a C-sized sheet that is 17 by 22. I'm going to take my viewport and stretch it out so I can maximize and use as much of this space as possible. I'm even going to stretch it out to the bottom right corner of the title block, which you can do. You just need to be careful that if you're double clicking on the text to edit this text, you actually click on the text, because if you miss the text and double click, what you're doing is you're actually activating the viewport. See, now we're in model space here. And then if I try to click on the text, I can't, because that text exists out in the Paperspace. So double clicking inside or outside the viewport will switch you between model space and Paperspace. And if you get stuck inside the viewport, and you can't, you're zoomed in such a way that you can't double click outside of it, you can click right down here where it says model, and that will switch you back to Paperspace. So let's look at our Paperspace layout here. And as I've got it drawn now, will this fit at a 1:2 scale? Yeah, actually it will. I was a little concerned that it wouldn't fit, but it appears that it does. But I think we could kind of reorganize this a little bit. We could take the bushing and the bolt and move it down here where we've got a lot of white space. And so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that in the model space here. I'm going to move the bolt over. I'm going to move the bushing. Actually, hold up before I do that. Let me back that up. Let's make sure all my layers are turned on. I don't want to leave behind my center lines. I want to move them too. So let's move that. Let's move the bushing. And then, I guess you don't have to get these views aligned, but I think it does make the drawing look a little bit neater if, let's say, the bottom of that, of this front view and side view aligns with the bottom of the front and side views over here as well. And again, this isn't necessarily something you have to do, but I'm going to move this up just a bit. To just kind of even out the way that these views are spaced out. Move these over maybe just a little bit more. Okay, let's get rid of these lines and go back to our Paperspace layout. Oh, that's layout 1, that's for an A-size sheet. Here's layout 2 with the C-size sheet. This gives us lots of room. But we are using a 1:2 scale. So when I'm double clicked in here, it's at a 1:2 scale. I'm going to lock that in. So right away, before I forget, I'm going to change this to 1:2. And let's see, let's go ahead and fix up the rest of the information here. This is called double bearing. Oh, see, I just did it. I double clicked. I was trying to click on the text there, and instead I just activated the viewport. So I need to switch back to Paperspace. There we go. Double bearing. And if the text gets big enough to be 2 lines like that, I think it looks a little bit better if we shrink that down to 0.2. All right, and might as well go ahead and update the year as well. This is the 18th. Okay, so that all looks pretty good. Now, because I used a viewport scale of 1 to 2, that means that I should adjust the scale of my dimensions. I've also been saying in the previous videos, I know that my precision level is not correct, and I'll fix that at some point in the future, and that point is now. So I'm going to go to the Annotate tab and click in the bottom right corner to bring up the Dimension Style Manager and modify it by changing the fit to 2. And the primary units, I only need 2 decimal places. So what happens when you increase the size of your dimensions is sometimes they get a little bit too crowded. While their spacing might have been perfectly fine for when it was smaller, when they get larger, they might seem a little crowded. Like, for instance, these 3 instances of dimensions here, I think we need to stretch that out a bit. So I'm going to change my snap settings here back up to something like 0.125. And that will allow me to stretch those out, space them out evenly. Actually, is that? There we go. Now they're spread out evenly. When you've got 2 dimensions or side by side like that, it's best to kind of stagger them or offset them so it doesn't look like it's the same number. Let's drag that out a bit. Down here, I'm going to need to stretch these out some. Okay, yeah, we definitely have some crowding issues down here. So I think, let's double check my Paperspace layout 2. Yeah, I've got enough room here. If I move everything up a little bit, I can move this view down a little bit, or at least the bottom 2 views. Just to give them a little bit more space for the dimensions. There we go. Now they've got a bit more room. I'll just even them up here using those grid lines I see in the background. There we go. Now they're evenly spaced. Here we've got an issue. I'm going to drag this text to the outside. And we need to stretch some of this stuff out as well. This needs to go further away. This dimension needs to be somewhere else. There's no good place to put that, unfortunately. That will have to do. Okay. So we've got a couple leaders here. We need to adjust the scale of them as well. So on the annotate toolbar, if you go to leaders, modify, and let's change this scale to 2. All right, so where was that leader? This one. Why didn't that update? Let me make another multi-leader. No, I don't want it that balloon style. I want it just a regular leader. So let me change it back to the standard style. Oh, that's what the problem was. I only updated the size of one style, so I need to change my standard style as well to have a scale of 2. There we go. That updates that later. Okay. And everything else looks good as far as I can see. Well, maybe this dimension could be pulled out to the side a little bit more. So really it's just little tiny fine-tune adjustments. We want everything to be nice and spread out. We don't want anything overlapping or too crowded. And I keep going to the wrong layout. Okay. So there, everything's good. We just need to add a couple little notes here. We can do this in the Paperspace or the model space. I think I'll just do it here in the model space. I'll copy an existing piece of text here and note fillets and rounds 1/8. I don't want that stacked. Unstack. Radius except as noted. And I made this text twice as big for the titles of each view, like base, hex head bolt, and so on. But I'm going to make this go back to 0.2, which is the same size as the text in the dimensions. Actually, that's right. I scaled up that those dimensions when I put in the scale factor of 2, so they are 0.4. So 0.4 is the same size as the dimensions. Why did that not take? Let's highlight it, change it to 0.4, enter. There we go. All we need to do is stretch out that box like that. Okay, last thing to do is add the table. And again, this is something that can be done in the model space or in the Paperspace. I'm going to add it in the, try adding it in the Paperspace. Do I have a title block? Yeah, I do. Title block layer. I'll make this part of the title block. Add the table. The table is going to have 5 rows, which means I actually want to put in a 3 here. The reason for that is because you get the title and header row no matter what. So 3 plus 2 equals 5, except I want everything to just be data, data, data. Okay. And that's going to be a lot wider than I really need it, but that's okay. I can shrink it down after I put this text in here. 4, 3, 2, 1. That's weird. Why did that justify that way? Two, 1, and the bottom cell is item number. And it looks like I'm about out of time, so I'm going to have to finish up the table, which is really the last thing to do for this drawing. I'll finish that up, I guess, in the next video, and then wrap up any other loose ends I find. So, see you there.